The bid for survival starts here. Now really is the time to act for the Golden Boys, and we have our first clean sheet of the season. Never thought I'd be so jubilant to say that, but it is a little piece of jewellery, a little piece of gold dust for the Golden Boys, because we have had that struggle in the defence. But Roy Hodgson, first game, he shores up that defence. And okay, yeah, it's the bottom side Burnley. Fair enough, we should be beating them. But this squad after Norwich was in disarray. And we've just done baby steps to get back onto the right path. Because it finished Burnley 0, Watford 0 on Saturday night in the Premier League. Well, steady Eddie is Roy Hodgson. And hopefully he will be carrying on that little adjustment, little repairing of the cracks in this previous Watford team. But it is fair to say we looked the better and more threatening attacking side on Saturday night. However, we ultimately didn't take our chances well enough. We didn't have enough chances, didn't test Pope enough, but ultimately looked decent in periods. It's just defensively, it's not all saved, right? I know we got the clean sheet. However, we didn't look all game like we were under control. We looked nervy at times, and that was clear to see with the last kind of 20 minutes of the game where Burnley were just launching it forward. And fair enough, we did enough to defend, but on another day, Foster in the first half made a really good save to deny St. Maximan Cornet, and then also in the second half we saw that chance for Weghorst early on. An amazing sliding tackle from the fullback, Kamara. He was man of the match for me in this game because he just looked like he was giving it his all. He wasn't messing about, and ultimately it was a very, very disciplined performance from Hassane Kamara. So very happy with him. Am I happy with the point? I think I am. I've come round to it, and look, it's not going to be the thing where Roy comes in and it's a fully polished, product, and it's not going to be the end product straight away. We have to get our way into some confidence, and this is as exactly as Ben Foster put on the Watford website, this is a building block. This is at least something, right? Because before we had all the blocks and all the towers just pushed down and a mess and basically out of sight. We'd shipped off the building blocks and it was left with a barren wasteland, right? But now we've got one building block or maybe a few building blocks together, and now we can start to resemble something. Now, I do worry about our attack, I've got to say, because look, ever since Ismail Assar was out of the team with that injury at against Manchester United, I'm not saying we've missed him, but it's just not been the same, right? We've had to adapt, and we are able to adapt. We scored goals without him in that Everton game. We have found avenues to score goals in other areas of the pitch. But obviously, your star striker, your star winger, your star player, Ismail Assar, you want him to play. So he's been out with injury, and of course he's been taken off to AFCON. Senegal playing the final tonight, and good luck to them. But ultimately, it's interesting because I think what the roles that we've done is we've got a lot more. Well, I'd say a lot more holding midfielders and not enough wingers, right? Because we've got Edu Kayembe, we've got Sissoko, we've got Cleverley who got subbed on against Burnley, who I would have preferred to start over Kutska, but that's clearly just Hodgson's preference. To be fair though, Kutska was fantastic, I thought, on Saturday, so fair enough. His crossing for, a midfielder who is more about tackling was actually superb. The cross he put in for that header for João Pedro was pinpoint delivery. And really, that was the main chance Watford spurned that they really could have taken on another day. João Pedro, the Brazilian, has been in fantastic form. He's been so confident. And he was confident enough to have that header unmarked. You'd have backed him to stick that away. But unfortunately, just too close to Pope. And he was able to just, readjust and get it out away from danger. But ultimately a game of very little chances, right? You can see both these sides, and some people will say, it's a sign that both sides are going down because there's just a lack of quality. I mean, the conditions didn't help. It was very, very rainy conditions, very, very wet conditions on a cold night in Burnley. You know, it's the football, stereotype, the football, slogan, but it's like tough night in Burnley. But we didn't get a loss in that game. We did get something from it, and that's what Roy Hodgson is pleased with. However, we do need to look at these games and say, okay, across the course of a season, against Chelsea and City, you're not going to be expected to get results in terms of not just results, but wins. This is the kind of game you are expected to win, but you can't suddenly turn into a good team overnight. I think Roy Hodgson and Ray Livingston know that. But what they saw was encouraging, a bit more spirit, a bit more organisation. As I mentioned, still defensively a bit shaky, but I thought Cathcart had a fantastic game, as did Samir in the majority of the parts. But as I mentioned, Hassane Kamara was so solid, and we should have had a penalty. Like, there's no, dilly-dallying and avoiding the subject of it. It was a penalty, a stonewall penalty. It's a handball from Connor Roberts. It's in an unnatural position. He's literally put himself in a star-shaped position. It's like he's doing like breakdancing or, just the Macarena. I don't know. It's like all the hands are everywhere. And yeah, it's in a star-shaped position. You just can't be doing that. And I know people say, oh, well, you don't like to see those given. I think Peter Crouch said that on BT Sport. You don't like to see those given. Yeah, okay. But then also Peter Crouch said, fair enough, Watford can feel that they were a bit, they can feel a bit aggrieved by that one. And then you got the referee expert, Peter, on BT Sport, who comes in when the second half kicks off and says, yeah, to be fair, that under the laws of the game, the handball rule, if your arm is in an unnatural position, it should be a penalty, and that should be a penalty. So, like, even the experts are like, nah, that's a pen. Like, so VAR, you might as well go home, right? What's the point of bringing VAR? We saw this with the Sheffield United Villa game. This is almost like the worst bit about it with VAR, is it feels like there's even more games where we see glaringly obvious things being missed. And that's more frequent than when VAR wasn't even a thing. Like, the referee, I honestly think he's lost all power in this situation. I mean, we saw it actually in the AFCON semi-final. I think it was the semis. It was around that stage, and it was a fantastic decision from the referee, because VAR is like telling him this, and the referee's just getting into this like mindset that they have to always listen to what the referee is saying. Now, clearly, the VAR told the referee on Saturday, Craig Pawson, that look, that shouldn't be a penalty. But could Craig Pawson not have had a few more looks at it and said, actually, no, I know the handball rule is you can't be doing that in an unnatural position. And it almost felt like they rushed it to try and get half-time over the line. Like, it was the last embers of the first half. Craig Pawson, okay, fair enough, he maybe didn't see the initial scenario, but he blows his whistle, and then there's barely any time that VAR take to look at it. Or if there is, then VAR just says, Pawson, okay, don't bother looking at it. Well, let's get into the half-time break. Let's get a pie and a coffee. Let's get into the second half. Like, it's almost like, I know that they didn't say that, but it felt rushed. It felt like they wouldn't actually treat the situation fairly. I'm not being funny. If that opportunity came for Man City or for Liverpool and they were claiming a penalty, I'm not saying, it's guaranteed they'd give it, but it feels more likely. And that's elitist. That's club bias, and that's frustrating. Even especially in these relegation 6-pointers, they've got to be getting the decisions right. We saw it with Aston Villa, Sheffield United, and they had no excuse. They had no decision or excuse to hide behind, and they just got it wrong. And they just got to come out and say, we need to stamp this out. Not just we apologise for these mistakes, but we will change our application of the rules. It's not about changing the rules that's the issue, right? Because the rules are the rules. It's going to take a big effort to actually make kind of a revolutionary change of the rules. But the handball rule states this. So if VAR aren't consistently going in line with this rule, then they need to change, number one, whoever's operating the VAR at Stockley Park, and number two, they need to say to fans, right, this is how we're going to do it. Are we going to stick to this handball rule by the letter of the law, or are we going to use it situationally? It feels like they're using it situationally, and that seems unfair when you've got something like the Wolves Man City game earlier on in the season. João Moutinho, who simply, you can't say meant what he did, but it was given as a penalty. And he was so close to, Phil Foden or whoever it was crossing in from Man City. Whereas this one, okay, the argument is it's just as close, but it's not as close. And also, the difference was with the last one, it kind of almost came off here, or he was trying to block it, right? But this, it was such an unnatural position that you would have to think about how you were moving your body to actually stretch your hands out that far. So it's a very different scenario that doesn't get given. So that's the thing that's frustrating with me more than anything. The consistency is just not there from VAR, and they need to be held accountable and change their ways. It's as simple as that. But look, there weren't, as I mentioned, many chances in the game. Ben Foster, though, did make a couple of good saves. And look, ultimately got his first clean sheet of the season. It was about time, but fantastic to get it done. And going through the lineup, I think it was the right lineup from Roy Hodgson, other than maybe Cleverley, as I mentioned. I think this is the kind of game Cleverley would take by the scruff of the neck and just not give Burnley any minute of peace. And I do feel like in the first half, especially, we did go into our shell a little bit. And that's just what we do. It seems like we're so incapable of starting the game on the front foot. We let teams dictate us, and even against Burnley, who, look, they've not been in the best of form. They've got one win all season, but you would fancy them as the home team, right? That they look at this fixture, they see our terrible run of form, they see that we haven't kept a clean sheet all season, that they would circle that game for a home win. So the fact we've denied that is encouraging, but it's really, we don't seem to take this game by the scruff of the neck quick enough, and that is why we start to get worried, we start to get nervy, and oh my gosh, that second half, I mean, the whole game, it was like going on a roller coaster. My heart was beating out of my chest, as I'm sure a lot of Watford fans was the same thing. So ultimately, we've got a point. We've gained something from this game. We haven't, got a negative result, but it's just, would have been nice to get a win, of course. It's just patience. How much patience can we have? We know realistically 7 wins is what we need. And we've got another point to that tally. So, we've gone up from 19th to 18th, 15 points after 21 games. So, look, it's the home stretch now. It is really, really important that we are careful about how we go about these games, of course, because every game counts now. Every point counts. It feels like it's the final 100 metres in a sprint. And, I am worried. But the last 17 games, I think these are still enough games for, hopefully, the players to fully understand what Hodgson and Ray are doing and also fully attack them, right? Because we know that we're not going to get the easiest of matches in this run either, right? We've got Chelsea on the final day. We've got Liverpool. We've got Manchester City still yet to play. We've got 2 games against Crystal Palace still yet to play. We've got Wolves in the Boxing Day fixture still yet to play, or what it would have been at Molineux. So I still feel like there is opportunity, right? We've got still a game in hand over Norwich. We've played the same number of games as Newcastle, but we've got a much better goal difference than Norwich. And we're not that far away in terms of goal difference from Burnley, right? They're slightly better, but they're obviously 2 points behind us. So, if we'd have lost on Saturday, that would have been, I'm not going to say it because it's not mathematical, but it would have been, for all other intents and purposes, season done. Because just like we did against Norwich, it would have meant Burnley would have leapfrogged us and left us right at the bottom. So we've got a point. The first point we got since Newcastle. Still need to get a win though. Still waiting on that after the Manchester United game. And we need to be much better at home. It's as simple as that. We've got a chance to do that against Brighton, a team who have fully deserved where they sit in the table at 9th. They are going to be a very difficult opposition, to be honest. But that home form needs to improve. It's as simple as that. We've won 1 game at home all season. Not enough. And that Villa game, it was like an age ago. So, I mean, it ends goalless, right? It was a fantastic block from the defender Hassane Kamara to deny Weghorst. deflects onto the crossbar, and Foster, to be fair, he got his bearings all wrong, and he was backpedaling. Cathcart was almost saying to him, like, that's not where the ball is. Like, look where the ball is. And luckily, Foster didn't, get punished by that. So look, I think we've got a good chance. We've got a good chance of really getting in amongst it. Relegation is not impossible. It's certainly also not, unavoidable. But it's also not going to be easy. We know that, right? So I think this was the kind of game where the lads did pull their socks up. There was a lack of quality, and we do need to be better at passing the ball into the final third. It's a simple thing to do, and it needs to be simply better worked on in the training ground. So I am worried about the teams around us, like Newcastle, who they're just buying players with money. The Saudi takeover, it's just... the odds are stacked against us, right? But we know that we can get through this. We have quality players. It's just about that defence. It's all about that defence. Now, we got a clean sheet in this game, but how many more clean sheets can we get between now and the 23rd or 22nd of May? That is the ultimate question. And if the answer to that is, say 5, then we might be okay. But we won't often win games when we concede 3 or more. We've seen that before this season. So I just hope we can keep up that defence, ultimately score more goals, because we did actually have Dennis and Sarr missing, but it feels like we were robbed because of that penalty. And actually, the first chance that we had, well, one of the first chances, really nice build-up. Pedro has the shot. He kind of takes it in his stride, and it was a very good tackle, to be fair, from James Tarkowski. But a lot of people didn't notice that when he makes that tackle, although he wins the ball, then with the other foot, he just slightly swipes underneath him. Now, I'm not going to say that's a penalty because people are looking at the fact he's won the ball first there, and maybe he can't control the momentum that takes him into Joao Pedro. But on another day, that could have been worse. And some of the decisions, like the yellow card for King, come on, really? I mean, I know Tarkowski, he does get a bit in the eye, but is that intentional from King? I don't think it is. And Weghorst, I thought, was very uninspiring, and that's great in terms of our perspective because we've clearly done the right things there to keep him quiet. So, yeah, all in all, I think we've got to be fairly, I don't think happy is the right word, but fairly content with the effort shown. But it's just, it's a building block. It really is. So, I think the chance from Cornet was a big moment. The chance for Peters as well. I mean, he was given space to shoot. And Lennon as well, clearing it off the line because it might have been a Ben Mee own goal. But, yeah, I think Cornet is that kind of player that we thought we'd be worrying about. To be fair, Foster did well to kind of stand up against him. But there was that chance at the end for Tom Cleverley, wasn't it? It was a really good strike. Unfortunately, deflects off Ben Mee. Just takes a bit of the sting out of the shot. And Pope is just able to stretch far enough and palm it behind for the corner kick. So, yeah, we reflect on this with maybe a bit of this is where our season got back on track rather than this is where we saved our season. But don't forget that Javi Gracia did get a 0-0 draw with a relegation rival, and that was Stoke City. And then what did he go on to do? He went on to get us to the FA Cup final. So, just saying, 2022 to 23 FA Cup, here we come. Now, let's keep our feet on the ground, realistically. Let's stay in the Premier League, let's finish 17th, and let's score more goals, please. But, yeah, very, very happy with Hassane, for sure. Also, can I just say, what was Dale Stephens doing? I honestly feel that he could have been very, very lucky there. Unintentional, no, I don't think so. And he got one booking, but he just couldn't deal with our players. And, it was a bit of a liability, I'm not going to lie. Cathcart, as I mentioned, was very, very solid. Kiko wasn't his best game, I don't think. I didn't see enough of him to get excited, but that doesn't mean to say that Ngakia has to come straight in. They're very interchangeable. Sema, was a bit quiet, and I'm not going to lie, that was his chance to take on Saturday, and he just was a bit of a passenger. But as I mentioned, Kutska really good, Sissoko solid as always. He doesn't do that much wrong. Kayembe, he also was kind of not bad, but nothing spectacular, and he did get subbed off for that. And King, not great, but in terms of his hold up still, his hard work, it's all there, but it's just not enough chances and not enough goals. And obviously the substitute, Cucho as well, he'd liven things up. And that's what Cucho does, right, when he comes on. With the chance that fell for Cleverley, I think it was just in the build-up, Cucho kept on going, kept on pushing, won the ball and kind of kept the ball and kept on dribbling, kept on fighting. So we want to see that fighting spirit from more of our players. And hopefully, maybe, Imran Louza could come back in for that matchup with West Ham just to settle the defence midfield a little bit, maybe for Kayembe, but there's really not a lot in it. It's just that we need to score goals. Dennis will be back on Tuesday night, and let's try and see if we could get, just like that second half was in the game, a more encouraging result. And let's see if we can shock the Hammers, who did get lucky to get through against Kidderminster. So maybe.